It all comes down to this. The final preseason game is over, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers are heading to the season, meaning they need to cut down their roster to 53 players. So this is my prediction on who I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers will have at their final roster cutdowns. And the way I'm going to do this is mixed into who I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should keep and also who I believe they will keep. And also, based off the number of players kept at each position, I'm going to look at what they kept last year in terms of that position. For example, if they kept 6 wide receivers, I may go 6 wide receivers, 3 running backs, 3 running backs. But anyway, it should be interesting. But first, before I get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back to the video. And we're going to start off with the quarterback position, because I'm going to have a little prediction here of the quarterbacks kept, and the first two are obvious. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers as the number 1 and Mason Rudolph as the number 2. But at the third quarterback spot, what I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers will do is place rookie quarterback Will Howard on injured reserve, meaning that he will start the season there, and they will have a third quarterback spot open. And they will give that third quarterback spot on the main roster to Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson has absolutely showed out during the preseason and training camp, put up big numbers, touchdowns, yards, everything like that. And he's a really good, solid backup quarterback. And I don't believe the Pittsburgh Steelers would want to get rid of a guy who they have belief in and who showed out. And obviously, Will Howard is injured. Yes, he could start the season not injured and on the 53-man roster, but why rush him back? He's not going to play anyway. He's going to be inactive anyway, so you might as well keep Skylar Thompson as the third quarterback. And later on down the road, if a quarterback of a different team gets injured, other teams may be calling, looking for a backup or looking for a starter for a few weeks, and they may call about Skylar Thompson, and then you might be able to get a draft pick out of it. So I believe that Skylar Thompson makes this initial 53-man roster alongside Mason Rudolph and Aaron Rodgers. And Will Howard is kept on IR and eventually moved over to the main roster at a later date. Now, let's move over to the running back position. And at this position, I'm only going to keep 3 guys. And that's Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson. Those are my 3 running backs. The other running backs who performed in the preseason, yes, they were good. But were they good enough to make this 53-man roster and be a player that you have to keep? I don't think so. So they may be able to release like Lou Nichols, Trey Sermon, and hopefully get them back on the practice squad. But these are the 3 running backs for sure. It's not like you're going to use one of the other guys here and there on downs unless someone gets injured. So why do you feel the need to keep them? That's why I believe they only keep 3 this season. And those 3 are Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson. Now, looking at the wide receiver position, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers keep at that position DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, and Ben Skornick. So I have them keeping 5 wide receivers. There are other wide receivers who could potentially make this roster, like Robert Woods and some guys who showed out in the preseason, like Keyshawn Williams and Brandon Johnson. But I believe those guys would go to practice squad. And Robert Woods, he just didn't show enough in terms of actually being able to contribute at this age later in his career. Yes, we know what he is at this point, but will he play over the other guys? Probably not. So what's the point of keeping him? 5 wide receivers, does it? If an injury happens, sure. During the season, you may be able to sign him back. So looking at the tight end position, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers keep 4. Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. Obviously, the first 3 are given. You want Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith as your top guys, and then Darnell Washington as the red zone threat and the blocker. Connor Hayward, on the other hand, is expendable to me because he really doesn't do too much. He takes up a position that can be kind of dealt with and given to other people and more opportunity given to other people. So I would cut him and probably get someone else to keep on the roster. But I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers will keep him. So I'm not going to cut him for the purpose of this video. So Connor Hayward stays because of that reason. Now, looking at the offensive line, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers keeping 9 of them. And that's obviously Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fatanu. Those are the 5 guarantees. Now, the other players I have them keeping are Spencer Anderson, Ryan McCollum, Dylan Cook, and Kelvin Anderson. So no Andres Pete on this list. Those are the guys. And the reason I have them keeping Kelvin Anderson, because even though he's injured, the Steelers gave him a contract extension of 2 years this offseason. So obviously they believe that he could be a top backup if someone gets injured. So Andres Pete, even though I would love to keep him and find a way, I believe he gets cut, and it's going to be one of those shocking moves that you believe that he should have made the roster. Down the road, could he be back? Yes, but right now he gets cut. So, looking at the defensive side of the ball, let's start off in the trenches since we ended in the trenches. And I have them keeping Cameron Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, Yaya Black, Isaiah Loudermilk, Daniel Ikule, and Logan Lee. So, those are the 7 guys. Me personally, I would probably swap out DeMarvin Leal for Logan Lee, but this is what I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will end up doing because Logan Lee was drafted at a later year than DeMarvin Leal, and DeMarvin Leal has been here for a while and he just hasn't showed out in the actual seasons. And even though he played really good this preseason and showed he could play the edge position, I believe the Steelers decided to keep Logan Lee instead because he was just drafted last year and they probably see more potential in him and his upside. So that's why I have been keeping. And another player who's in question is Derek Harmon. He can start the season on injury reserve, and if he does, that I would switch out and keep DeMarvin Leal. But Derek Harmon, who knows if he's really going to be healthy to start the season. Now, looking at inside linebacker, I have them keeping 5, and that's Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, Malik Harrison, and Carson Bruner. The same thing here between Carson Bruner and Mark Robinson. I really like Mark Robinson better, but I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers will keep Carson Bruner because they just drafted him this year. And if there's not that much of a difference between the two, and you can't really decide, you're going to keep the guy who you have control over in terms of his contract for another 4 years compared to Mark Robinson, who after this year, his contract is up. So that makes complete sense, and that's why they keep Carson Bruner. Me personally, I really like Mark Robinson. I believe he was never given the full opportunity to be the guy who he could be. We know he's a hit stick, he's a secure tackler, he's really good on special teams, but he's just never given the full opportunity to show that out in real games for more than just a few games at a time or a few plays here and there. But Carson Bruner stays over Mark Robinson, and that's the deal at linebacker. Now, looking at outside linebacker / edge rusher, we obviously have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig. And obviously, Jack Sawyer. And Jack Sawyer stays, even though some people were questioning his preseason, because he has upside. He's a player who showed out in college, and you're not going to cut him after his first preseason because he didn't play as well as you wanted him to. No, he's going to learn, he's going to grow next to these guys, and he's going to stay on this roster. So Jack Sawyer and those guys, it should be a given that those are the 4. Looking at cornerbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers keep Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, Brandon Eccles, James Pierre, and Beanie Bishop Jr. Those are 6 cornerbacks, and those should also be a given. Those are the 6 guys who the Steelers should keep. Corey Trice Jr., on the other hand, he should start the season on injured reserve, giving the Steelers an opportunity to have him on the roster still, not release him, and decide what they want to do with him at a later date. I really like Corey Trice Jr. The coaches really like Corey Trice Jr., but he just doesn't stay healthy, and that's the big question mark with him. So hopefully he gets back from this injury, shows out, and takes one of those spots. Looking at the safeties the Pittsburgh Steelers keep, they keep 4, and that's Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Chuck Clark, and Miles Killebrew. This should also be a given. Those are the 3 main safeties, and then Miles Killebrew is kept because of special teams and his ability there to be an absolute menace. So, those safeties need to step up after, obviously, the Steelers make way and trade away Minkah Fitzpatrick this offseason, but those 4 safeties played well in the preseason, and they should be able to do it. So, those are the guys they keep. Now, that's it for the defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers in total on defense they kept 26 players. And on offense, in total, they kept 24. So they kept 2 more defensive players in my prediction than they kept offensive players. Now, moving over to special teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers keep kicker Chris Boswell, and that's a given, the best kicker in the NFL. He's going to make this roster. And also, they keep long snapper Christian Kuntz. This one's up in the air a little bit because he is injured, and who knows if he's going to be ready to start week 1. So he may end up on injury reserve. I believe he'll be ready to go. And the Pittsburgh Steelers just released their other long snapper on the team, so they probably believe he'll be ready to go as well. So they keep him at the long snapper position. Now, looking at the final roster spots, punter. Who would have known the biggest battle this offseason would be the punter in terms of who's going to stay, who's going to go? It's either going to be Carlos Waitman or Cameron Johnson. Who stays? Well, I like Carlos Waitman more in terms of what he has shown last season to be consistent, but also this preseason, he was a much better punter in terms of getting the ball down the field, long punts, and also not having big returns. So Carlos Waitman, he's a player who's younger, he has a bigger leg, and I believe he can stay on this team, and he makes it. Now, on the other hand, can Cameron Johnston easily make this roster? Yeah, I think it's either switchable. Either of those two are great picks, but I pick Carlos Waitman. Now, that's the end of this video. That's the final 53-man roster. The Pittsburgh Steelers, everyone they kept on offense, defense, and special teams. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this video, on this prediction. Is there anything that you would switch at any position? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports. Everything surrounding Pittsburgh Steelers, doesn't matter what it is, I have you covered. Predictions like this, news, stay tuned. So, like, comment, subscribe, and until the next video tomorrow, that's it for me. I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.